Good afternoon. How are we?
Morning.
Hi,
Hi,
how are you
Tony.
all?
Good to see you again. Hi, Cassie. How you going?
Good,
Hey,
thank you.
Melinda. Hi, Melinda. Good to see you.
You too.
Haven't seen you for a while.
Mm.
It's been about a month, I think, since the last masterclass. All right, I'm just letting a few people in. Now, does anyone know about plants? As you know, I had an arborist business for such a long time, but I've got no idea about plants. I just picked up a bottle of water to feed my plants in my office, and it's lemon scented water. Is lemon scented water good for plants? You know how to kill them, Tony? Yep.
I'll take it.
Yeah, I just picked it up out of the fridge, and I just went, oh, this tastes a bit funny, and then I thought I'll give it to the plants, and I'm thinking, oh God, I hope I haven't killed them. Anyway, it's all good. All right, ladies. Have you guys got your workbooks or access to the workbook on your screen somewhere? Because what you're going to be doing is a lot of reflection today, a lot of answering questions, looking inward, thinking about what you're doing and possibly what needs to change. When it comes to identity, identity is something that we can work on any time of the day, any minute for the rest of our lives, because every time you have an intention to do something new, whether it be for personal or professional, there will be an identity shift that will be required. So think about where you are now, whether you're turning over $1,000 a month, $50,000 a month, $1,000,000 a month. All those levels require a different identity shift. So we're going to be going through 5 today. But before I start, what I want to do is, I just want to share this with you because I think it's appropriate. I went into my group on Saturday and shared the 8-8 portal with you. Now, that actually finishes today, being the 12th, but today is a fairly significant day, whereas we've got an eclipse. Now, I don't get into this sort of thing unless it's a significant thing of some description, and it was interesting that it landed on today, and I'd already booked this masterclass anyway, but I thought, this is so cool, because what this eclipse is all about is releasing. It's about releasing old identities, releasing who we are to move into this new era of who we are becoming. So when you have a look at what we're going through today and some of the questions that are going to come up, have a look and feel to where you're sitting, and then answer those questions in terms of how you're feeling, and really dig deep with where you're at the moment. Because if we're in this state of releasing, we want to remove that old identity of who we were and come into that space of who we're becoming, because who we were is not going to get us to where we want to be. Okay, so we've got to shed that, kind of like, a snake sheds its skin. We've got to shed that idea of who we are and bring ourselves into the space of where we're going. So I just think it's really appropriate that today has actually happened on the day that it is. I get very excited about these sorts of things. And releasing the old can take some time before that new identity comes through. So we want to feel into the new identity. We want to feel into who we are becoming. So I'm just going to change the view of my screen. That's it. Hi, Marilyn. How are you? I couldn't see you before. So, I just wanted to get you onto screen. So feel free to add anything, take yourself off mute, whatever you want to do, ask a question as we go through, whatever works for you. This is going to be a really interactive session. And as I said, it's going to be really good for you to sit internally and just reflect. It's not about judgment for yourself. It's about just being really honest, because when we get really honest, that's when we get the answers. Okay, so I'm going to get into it. And today's masterclass is all about the 5 identity shifts every coach must make. As I said, identity shifting, it's continual. It's not just do it once and then bang, I'm into that next level. It's about looking at yourself all the time and going, okay, who am I becoming? So I want to start with something that I think is really important. And if you've been building your coaching business and you've been thinking, why isn't this working yet? maybe you're posting, you're creating all the content you need, you're learning, you're doing all the courses, you're tweaking your offer, you're trying to get more visible, you're looking at other coaches and doing absolutely everything, and it's not happening yet. I suggest that the problem may not be about having more information, it's about identifying what's keeping you stuck at the moment. Okay, so because you have like all the strategies under the sun and you know exactly what you need to do, you have your offer, you've got your website, you're tweaking all the bits and pieces that you need to tweak. But what if the person doing all those things is still operating from an old identity? Okay, the business is going to reflect that. And that's what we're going to be uncovering today. So I'm going to take you through 5 different shifts, and I've got my workbook to the left of me. So if I'm looking at the left at any time, it's because I'm looking at that. And the 5 shifts that we're going to be going through is the employee to the CEO, doubt to confidence, scarcity to wealth, invisible to in demand, and almost to actually. So when you think of those, as I said in the beginning, it's not all of a sudden you make the decision and I'm going to go, oh, well, I'm going to be more visible, so I'm going to be in demand. It doesn't work like that. It takes time and it's repetition over time. So one of the things that I thought was very, very interesting was it took Mel Robbins 15 years to get to the status that she was worldwide. And one of her books that she had on Amazon took 9 years to really take off. So I'm not saying this to scare you and say it's going to take you 15 years to get you to where you want to be. The thing is, when we're working on our identity and when we're being visible online, and we're all in the space of where we weren't brought up or raised with social media, there is going to be moments of us that will hold ourselves back because we aren't in that space of, yeah, let's just put ourselves out there and let's just do this and dance and carry on and do all the stuff that, people are being seen for. And if you follow Alex Hormozy, the first thing he ever writes on most of his stuff is the way to build your business the fastest is to make yourself like do something crazy. Be really out there and be visible in terms of people are going to take notice of who you are. So this is what I mean. We're actually in that space of, okay, where are we sitting and how comfortable are we sitting in this space? And that's what we're going to look at today. So the first shift I want to look at is the employee to the CEO. And I've spoken about this with you before many times, and it will be something I'll speak about forever and a day because it doesn't necessarily go back to just the employee stages. It goes back to when we were in high school. It goes back to when we were in primary school. It goes back to when we were a child. I'm only going to relate it to an employee position because that's when we're an adult. Okay, everything else that is prior to us being an adult. So the reason I put this first is because coaches have left their corporate job, but their identity never actually left. Okay, so your employment may have ended, but the programming can still remain. And I've noticed, programming with myself that still pops up. And this is the thing about this work. We think we've solved one little problem, and then all of a sudden there'll be something that'll come up behind it and you'll go, okay, well, there's another thing I've got to deal with. And that's normal because there's always lessons to be learned. So this can be the really sneaky bit because employee programming doesn't necessarily look like, I don't want to be a business owner. It can look incredibly responsible. It can look like I'm getting through things. I'm doing my offer. I'm refining it. I'm researching. I'm doing all the things right. I'm, tweaking my website. I need to know exactly what I'm doing. It can be waiting until you're feeling ready. And meanwhile, the business isn't moving. So this workbook will ask you to look at whether you're waiting until you feel ready or needing someone else's approval. So are you avoiding decisions that you need to make? Are you hoping clients magically appear? Well, that was one of the things that I thought they would do because previous business of mine was you put an ad in the paper and you waited for the clients to ring you. So then you went and did that, and then you went and did the quote or whatever it was, and then you got the yes or the no. So being online is very, very different. it's still, thinking like someone who has a job rather than someone who owns a business. So if you want to go to the, what page is it? Oh God, Shelley, you haven't even got page numbers on it. Shift one, page 3. Excellent, excellent. There are some questions on there, and there's 2, 4, 5 questions. And what I want to do is just get you to sit there for the next couple of minutes, and I'm going to try and put a timer on my screen here, just to give you some space to sit with those questions, answer those questions as honestly as you possibly can, because the more honest you get, the more answers you're going to get for yourself. So have you got the workbook?
No, I've got it. I read it, and I forgot, and my printer's under here, and I forgot to print it off.
No,
Ah, typical of me.
that's okay. Do you want me to put it? I can share my screen and probably put it on my screen if that works for you.
Okay, thanks.
That'll have the questions on it for you. So can you see that?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Well, there are the 2, 4, 5 questions. Are you waiting until you feel ready? Do you need someone else's approval? Do you avoid making decisions? Are you hoping clients magically appear? And the last one, are you still thinking like someone who has a job instead of someone who owns a business? So if you just want to go ahead and actually just think about those questions, um, and this may not necessarily be in your business either. It can be personal. A lot of the times we're waiting for permission to do things. So
So,
I
sorry,
think,
Shelley, just last one is
yeah,
on
Sue,
blind as a bloody bat. The very last one in the
are you still thinking like someone who has a job instead of someone who owns a business?
no, it's not that one,
In the
is it?
box?
Yeah, the last one. Is it last
Okay, I
one?
haven't got to that one yet. I was just
Oh,
about to
okay,
say because this is the one that you can look at next. Where in
okay.
your week did you wait for permission that wasn't yours to wait for? And this is actually a really good one to look at because CEOs don't wait for someone to tell them it's okay. The CEO makes the decision. So I'm not saying you suddenly need to become some loud, aggressive businesswoman who knows and thinks she knows everything. Definitely not. But being the CEO of your business doesn't mean, you have to know everything. It just means taking responsibility for the decisions that are going to move you forward. And I think the key thing is most coaches leave corporate, but corporate doesn't necessarily leave them. And the habits that make you successful as an employee can sometimes be the habits that keep you stuck in a business. So the second shift we're going to look at is doubt to confidence. And this one's interesting because doubt doesn't necessarily look like doubt. It can look like being very productive. It can look like being the perfectionist. It can look like you're researching a whole heap of things. It looks like you can be refining all the time, refining the website, refining the banner, refining the niche. It can look like it's not that I'm just not quite ready for making an offer yet. It can be that I need to post better things, or it needs to be I need to be more sure with my messaging. It can be all sorts of things, but sometimes what we're calling preparation is actually avoidance. So we're avoiding where we're wanting to be because of, sitting in that space of not being comfortable. So hang on a second. I'm just going to go down to this next one and have a look at where you've been sitting this week with some of these questions and ask yourself, do you rewrite posts 10 times before you hit publish? Do you overthink sending a DM sometimes? Do you avoid talking about your offer? Do you wonder if people are judging you? And then the reflection question, what's one thing you've been still working on that's actually just avoidance in disguise? So as I said, just be honest. No one's going to see it. Maybe you've been working on your website for 6 months. Maybe you've been working on your offer or your content or your messaging. There's absolutely nothing wrong with wanting these things to look amazing, but there comes a point where good enough needs to become done. Because sometimes the more you do the things you're afraid of to do, the more evidence you give yourself that you can do it. So instead of asking, how can I feel more confident, start asking, what would I do today if I trusted myself? And we've all been in a space of doubting ourselves. And it's about how we see ourselves. And then when we do those things that scare us, we actually become more confident with who we are because we realize it hasn't killed us. We're still standing. So, what's one thing that you've been holding off from doing, whether it be posting or a reel or whatever it is, that you can do today that is really going to test where you are and who you are? We're going to go to the next one, which is scarcity to wealth. And scarcity doesn't always look like I have no money. Sometimes scarcity is actually really quiet. It can sound like no one can afford me. There are too many coaches in this space. I've been guilty of that one. It can sound like I'm being salesy in a DM conversation. It can sound like, what if they say no? So those thoughts don't just affect how you feel, they actually affect the decisions you make. So take notice of when I say these sorts of things, how are you feeling about it? Because how you feel about it is actually then what you're going to attract to you, but also is going to be how you will react and respond to things. So have a look at the questions. Which one of those have you either thought about? Maybe all or one or none. And then have a look at the pause and reflect question. When did fear make a business decision for you this month instead of you? Maybe you didn't raise your price because you were afraid. Maybe you didn't make an offer because you thought nobody would buy. Maybe you didn't follow up because you were worried about being pushy. Maybe you didn't invest because you were afraid of spending money. So when you shift the thinking, wealth identity isn't about pretending, because everything is about abundance and throwing money around. It's about making that decision from the possibility rather than the fear. So how often are you making decisions from fear instead of possibility? Because if fear is making your business decisions, fear is effectively running your business, and that's not where we want to operate from. We want to operate from the thought that there is enough for everybody. Think of the piece of the pie. You take your little piece of the pie, someone else takes their little piece of the pie, and then if you want more, you can have more. You're not going to take from someone else. Pie just gets bigger. And this is where the abundance mindset comes from. It's not taking from anyone else. It's actually making everyone bigger, and everyone has the expansion like you do. I think that when I had branch management, and I used to tell the story of the pie all the time. I used to say that, well, we've got a little piece and you've got a little piece and someone else has got a little piece. Don't feel as if you're taking anyone else's. It's just going to get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's going to expand, and everyone's going to grow. When you come from that space, that's when things will really shift for you. So then we're going to look at shift 4, invisible to demand. So, being out on social media, you actually read a lot of what people are saying, and a lot of people are saying, I just need more visibility, I need more followers, I need to post more, I need to get my content out there. But this is what I want you to consider. Visibility isn't simply about being seen, it's about being recognized. So the workbook asks you, do people actually know what you do? Could someone explain your business after reading your posts? Is your content educating people or helping them realize they have a problem that you can solve? So one of the things that I really had to switch in my mind was Groundhog Day. Everything that you post needs to be like repetitive so that people are actually understanding what you're solving. So we solve one problem. We want to be talking about one thing in our posts all the time. And it's Groundhog Day. I was telling Cassie, I think this morning, there was a lady who I've been following in Newcastle here, and I unsubscribed from her. But what ended up happening was that I remember her sending me an email. Oh, look, probably would have been about 2 or 3 months ago. And the same email came through my inbox yesterday. And I thought, isn't that interesting? Same hook, same everything in the content. She's just rehashing it. So it's Groundhog Day. So just keep thinking that that's what you're doing. That's you're solving that one particular problem for people, and you just keep rehashing it. So imagine someone who's never met you and they read your first 5 posts. Could they tell you who you help? What you help them with? And why that they should care? And this all comes down to your banner, your bio, your content. And if you feel that the answer is no, that's not necessarily a content problem. That could be a clarity problem. And that's actually where quite a few coaches do get caught. They get caught with producing content and giving value and teaching and educating, but the audience is thinking, what's interesting? That's not for me. She understands me. I need help with this. But they're not getting the clarity from you. So have a look at those reflection questions. And you might be all on point with this. It's only just a matter of time, because repetition with posting, repetition with emails, repetition with everything that we're doing is building on what we did yesterday. And as I've heard any coach and every coach who is coaching coaches, it's about the consistency of what they're doing. Being consistent online, but also being really consistent on working on yourself on a day-to-day basis. Where are you seeing things in your day, your thoughts, how you feel, that can be tweaked to get you to where you want to be? So shift 5, it's probably one of my favorite ones, almost to actually, because I think this is where a lot of us actually do sit, almost is that comfortable place. You're close enough to feel like you're making progress and but far enough away than what you're not getting the outcome that you actually want. But you're feeling like you're getting there, you're almost there, you're almost there. But then once you do something, something happens and you either succeed or you don't succeed. And sometimes we can spend years protecting ourselves from having to find out. So listen to some of these. These are some examples. I've nearly launched. I've nearly finished my website. I'm almost consistent with what I'm doing. I almost signed that client. I nearly hit my goal. And I reckon all of us, if we were being honest, we would have thought those thoughts regularly because they all sound familiar. So now we want to say, okay, what's the one thing you could have almost done for the longest? And just sit with that. So I'm just going to stop sharing. I just took a photo of us. But this is, it's a part of, what we're doing, but it's actually quite a dangerous part because it feels like progress. You can tell yourself, I'm working on it, I'm getting there, it's coming. That's probably my word that I do all the time. Yeah, it's coming, it's nearly there. But if like keep saying almost, and another month passes, and another month passes, and another month passes, then eventually you have to ask yourself, what am I like almost protecting me from? Is it the protection of failure? Is it the protection of being judged? Is it protection of having to sell, putting yourself out there, being visible, protection of succeeding? People do have a fear of succeeding. Is it a protection of having to become the woman who can hold that level of success? And that's a much deeper question when we look at that. Do we believe that we can be that woman who has that level of success? Now, going back to branch management, when I decided I wanted to be $1 million turnover, it took me 6 years to get there from when I decided to actually getting there. Each year was an extra $100,000. So I decided at 500,000 a year turnover. Then the next year was 600. The year after that was 700,000. And the year after that was 8. Then 9. Then I went to 989. $11,000 short. And I just went, oh, bugger, I've got to go through another year. Got to $1 million. Then it was like 1.1, 1.2, 1.3. And it went on like that. Just because you've made the decision that you want to have this doesn't mean that it's just going to land in your lap this very second. Think of anyone who has built a business. It's taken time, and what you do in 1 year, then the next year you're going to build upon that, and then the next year you're going to build upon that, and it goes like that. Okay? So we've just walked through 5 identity shifts. The employee to the CEO, so that's taking ownership. Doubt to confidence, so trusting yourself enough to act. Scarcity through to wealth, which is making decisions from possibility rather than from fear. Invisible to in demand, being recognized for the problem you solved or you solve. And then almost to actually stopping the endless preparation and actually moving. So I had a coach who had so many mistakes in her website because I read it from top to bottom. And I said, go in and pick, change this word and make it correct and all the rest. And she could not give 2 hoots. And I'm thinking, oh my goodness, who are you? Where it came from was that wasn't her point of concern. Whereas the majority of people, that would have been the point of concern, which it was at my time, at that particular time, because it was like, all right, we're seeing all these outside circumstances that are more so than where she was actually sitting in terms of the value she was giving to her clients and what have you. So this is the thing. This is all about the identity. We don't want to look on the outside. Everything that we're doing on the outside, we've got to look at who we are on the inside, how we feel, how we're talking to ourselves. And it all comes down to these 5 identity shifts. And as I said at the beginning, they will require a level higher. When you reach that point of doing that, then you've got to ask yourself the questions again. What do I like? Who do I need to become to go to the level beyond where I'm at? So when you go to the last page, sorry, the second last page, which one is currently costing you clients or costing you your business? Is it the employee to the CEO? Is it doubt to confidence, scarcity to wealth, invisible to in demand, almost to actually? You can choose one. It could be parts of all. But choose one that feels a little bit uncomfortable for you. Because when you sit in that space of being uncomfortable, that's actually when the growth is going to happen more so within you. So which shift feels most like you at the moment and why? And then what would you change if you closed that gap? So imagine the gap wasn't there. Imagine you weren't waiting for permission. Imagine you trusted yourself fully. Imagine you weren't making decisions from fear. Cassie, 2 and 3, excellent. Tony, I know how to, oh, yes, you've already seen that one. So imagine people immediately understand what you do when they come into your space. And imagine you stopped living in that almost and you actually did the thing. What would be different for you? What would be different for your business? What would be different for your income, your confidence? And what would be different to the way you saw yourself? Mainly 3 with a little of 5, with a sprinkle of 5 in there, hey? Yeah, that's cool. And this is what I want you to take away from today. You don't necessarily need a strategy. You don't necessarily need another course. You don't necessarily need to post more. You don't necessarily need to make another offer. Sometimes the level of your business requires you to become the person who can create the next level. And that's where the identity work is. It's where it comes about. Because your business can only grow as far as you're willing to grow. And so if you're still getting the same results, what needs to happen is you need to push yourself to that next level. You need to make that decision of who you are becoming and work on that identity to go to that next level. Because it does take time to get to that next level. It takes time to give yourself permission if that's what you need to do to go to that next level. It takes time to release that old identity and welcome the new identity. So at the moment, as I said, the 12th today, it's huge within the universe that we're releasing stuff. So walk away from here going, yeah, well, that old identity that I had yesterday and this morning, see you later. Thanks for coming. You've been a great friend up until now. And I've just decided that I'm going to another level and this is who I'm going to be. And you'll resist it. And you'll go, yeah, don't be silly. But this is where the work comes in. Okay. So if you're sitting here thinking, okay, Shelley, I can see it. I can see exactly where I'm stuck and I don't want to keep doing this. And Cassie's going, then that's exactly why I've included the next step in your workbook. Because identifying the shift is one thing, changing it, that's where the transformation happens. So the final page says almost ends here. And that's what I want for you. Not another month of almost, not another 6 months, not another year of saying I'm nearly there. So if today's masterclass has made you realize there's a gap between where you are and where you know you could be, I want to invite you to book a strategy call just with me so that we can work out what's the gap in your business, what's the gap that's holding you back, and how we can change that. So I want to say thank you very much for being here. I want to open up a line of communication with anyone if anyone wants to have a chat. Say hello, come on and say that was shit, Shelley, or that was really good. Whatever works for you.
I said, yeah, that was shit, Shelley. Like, yeah. That was shit because you held the mirror up and we can't hide from it when you ask those questions. That's what's shit about it, because we have to be honest with ourselves. So, yeah, and they're things that I know, and it's that confidence thing. It goes back to my confidence and making sure things, because that's what I looked, I thought, which one sits with me the most? And I looked at the one that I wrote the most down for, and it was like around my confidence, making sure that, you know, my booklets and everything were perfect, that I've done 10 times, that I've never sent out. Make sure my program's perfect, that I've never ran anyone through. Do you know what I mean? No point having all these perfect things if you don't have clients, if they can't see me, if they don't know who I am. Like, as you said, back in that mindset of putting myself out there, sending the information out and waiting for them to come to me. So I need to do that more, chasing. But then that's that confidence, and that, what if they say no? What if they judge me? And then it goes back to, I have to do my hair today. I have to dress right. Do you know what I mean? Like, it snowballs. And you said it's not just that bit around, you know, being the employee. It goes back to our root things of when we were little, of being perfect. Like, it really does. When you start dragging it back to why. Yeah, it's that mirror can be uncomfortable some days, but needed. But needed.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
and that's a great way of explaining it too, because the thing is, everything is a mirror, whether we like it or not. It doesn't matter whether you're talking to the Mel Robbins of the world or whether you're talking to Cassie, Shelley, Tony, Melinda, Susan, and Marilyn. Wherever we're sitting in our business, whatever is happening in our life is a reflection of who we believe we are and what we believe we are worth. So if we're not thinking and feeling like we are this particular person, and this is where it comes down to being in a space of, okay, not necessarily seeing what's happening today, but where am I going to land? Where am I going to land in a year's time, 2 years' time? You know, Cassie, on your live yesterday, I said to you, you said 12 months ago, I wouldn't have been doing these lives in my group. And this is the thing, we can go back and look at who we were 12 months ago, 2 years ago, and see exactly who we were. We can't go and see who we are in the future unless we create an image around that person, unless we create a decision that that's actually who we're going to be. So when we come from that place that we're landing here in the next 12 months, 2 years' time, this is who I am, this is what I'm wearing, these are my clients, this is what's going to happen. So this is the thing, you've probably heard me say, you know, I've got on between my two screens here, I can see my vision board. And on my vision board, I've got a little computer screen with lots of little faces on it. So I see that all the time. I need to up that because now I've got all these little faces on my screen. And this is the thing, when you start deciding that that's what you're going to have in your life, and if you watch or look at my stories, I post a lot from The Secret. which is all about the way you think. What you're thinking about today is going to come into your life tomorrow, next month, next year. So if you want clients to come into your life, you've got to imagine that that's what you have now. Think about from that space. Yes, I have exactly what I want. Because what you think about today is creating your future. And then when you actually become very, very observant of what you're thinking about, you shit yourself because you go, crap, I'm thinking about stuff that happened yesterday, last week, what Johnny said, what, happened in the news, all these sorts of things. And then all of a sudden you catastrophizing about those things. And then more of that comes into your life. So then you go, right, well, I've got to actually focus on what I really want. And then that is going to come into my life. So I want to say thank you so much for being here, ladies. Thank you for being honest with yourselves, because when you're more honest with yourselves, you're going to get so much more out of where you are, being more observant of where you are and what you can change. Anyway, I want to take a photo because we've got to do socials. Thanks, Shelley, a little spotlight for me. Awesome. So can we just have thumbs up, whatever? Excellent. You're all going to be millionaires. I can feel it. All right. Take care, everyone. I will talk to you soon. And thank you for being here. See you.
Shelley, thanks.
Bye.
Bye.